Today, I am going to look at what the Bible really says about the ascension of Jesus and then examine if there's a link to UFOs or not. For those who don't know what the ascension of Jesus is, after the Bible says Jesus died and came back to life, it says he hung around with his disciples for a while. Tradition says around 40 days. Then Jesus was physically taken up into heaven before his disciples' eyes. Many Christians are waiting for Jesus to return to earth the very same way he left it. The ascension is said to have occurred on the Mount of Olives. Is it possible Jesus was taken up from there into the stars by a UFO? Let's look at the scriptures. It's important to understand the high place this occurred is linked to UFO activity in the Bible. What do I mean by that? Let's read. Then the cherubim, with the wheels beside them, spread their wings, and the glory of the God of Israel was above them. The glory of the Lord went up from within the city and stopped above the mountain east of it. The mountain Ezekiel talks about here is the Mount of Olives. Cherubim, if they exist, are not chubby babies playing harps. They are powerful beings who dwell in the skies. They could look more like this. Jesus was said to often go up this mountain during his earthly ministry. He took his disciples up there. Supernatural things happened up there, perhaps because of its link to Ezekiel's wheels. The glory of God here means a brilliant light. Flying beings in wheels move through the sky. They stop and hover above the Mount of Olives. So with that history in mind, this is the place Jesus is said to have ascended from into the sky. Acts chapter 1, verse 9 to 11.
After he said this, he was taken up before their very eyes, and a cloud hid him from their sight. They were looking intently up into the sky as he was going, when suddenly two men dressed in white stood beside them. Men of Galilee, they said, why do you stand here looking into the sky? This same Jesus, who has been taken from you into heaven, will come back in the same way you have seen him go into heaven.
Looking at the ancient Greek gives us a lot more insight into this passage. The thing with translators is they will translate with their own preconceptions as to what the verse really means. A word can mean a few different things, and so translating can be a case of guesswork, going with what makes the most sense to our modern minds. In addition, you will also have the church pushing in another direction as they don't want people to know the truth. Look how much they have tried to suppress the Book of Enoch, all about aliens' interaction with mankind. I don't doubt there are many more such ancient writings they have buried deep in the Vatican archives. Anyway, onto the Greek. Some people reading this imagine Jesus beaming himself up into heaven, using his powers like when he walked on water. However, the Greek word for taken up means being lifted up by someone or something else. That's the first thing to note. Another force lifted Jesus up and lifted him up into the sky, or stars. The next word we will look at is the one for cloud. It is interesting this is similar to the Hebrew word Nephilim, the alien-human hybrid breed of giants spoken of in Genesis and Enoch. The Greek conveys being carried up and away out of sight, and the cloud is the one doing the carrying up. Verse 11. This same Jesus, who has been taken from you into heaven. Now, this is not the same Greek word as the first taken that appeared in this passage. This word means lifted up, but it can also mean being taken aboard ship. So the translation can legitimately be, this same Jesus who has been lifted up away from you. Taken to board a ship in the stars. It's also interesting that when the two men in gleaming white garments talk about Jesus' return, the words for will come back in the same way can also mean land. I am going to now jump to John chapter 6 verse 62. The word for ascend here also conveys being taken aboard a vessel. The same word is used when Jesus boards the boat the disciples are in when they are out fishing. We also have the ascended aboard word when Jesus talks to Mary Magdalene. Colossians chapter 3 verse 1. The word for sit can also convey taking a ride. We should remember the Apostle Paul, who wrote this, boasted of his own otherworld encounters where he was taken up into the third heaven. 1 Timothy 3, verse 16. The Greek word translated glory conveys the idea of being taken up by someone or something else in a bright celestial light. Witnesses of UFOs, and I am one of them, often report brilliant white light surrounding these craft. Perhaps this is like the glory that the prophet Ezekiel says went to hover above the Mount of Olives. Finally, Luke 24, verses 50 to 53. There's yet another word here for taken up. Anna means in an upward motion, and phero suggests being borne up with great force or speed. So there ends my examination of scriptures looking at the ascension of Jesus. The Bible may well say he was taken up into the stars by a UFO. And not only was he taken up by a UFO, but he will return in one as well. Crazy as this may sound, especially if you have been indoctrinated for years with misinformation, this meaning makes a lot of sense in the context of other scriptures. That is the bits we have access to that have not been entirely redacted. So for example, what the Greek really says about Jesus' birth among many other things. I will be looking at these things in a future video, so do subscribe to my channel.